So we're right on the top of Kuf Ches Amid Beis, first line. Darish Rava, Ma'idach Siv, Lapid Buz, La'ashtois, Shannon, a fire, a flame, um, will embarrass those that are, I'm sorry, those that have chaloimus. Nachan l'moyadei regel. It's prepared to be trampled by feet. It seems like a stretch how this is being forced into the pasuk, but it says Noach chastised the people of his dar and said to them words that were as hard as fire. And they responded, the word buz, they responded to him with bizyonis. Amuloi, zaken tevazu lama. What, we old man, what are you doing with this teva? Why are you building this ark? Amulam HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi alechem as hamabel. Said you're going to get the flood. Amru mabel shel ma. How is this mabel going to work? Im mabel shel eish. If it's a mabel of fire, he said it was a flood. He didn't say a flood of what? Yesh lanu davar acha. We have something else. Alisa shma. Its name is Alisa. It's kind of, Rashi says, types of metal plates, and we'll just cover up the fire with it, and it won't hurt us. Im shel mayim hu, if it's of water, if im shel mayim hu maybe, if he's coming from the water, im in haaretz hu maybe, yesh lanu ashishi yesh shel barzel. We have again these plates. But the least I'm not really sure what it was, but it's something that can it can stop the fire. Or maybe but this is the metal plates that they'll use to stop up the water from coming up from the ground. We're going to cover the holes in the ground where the water is bubbling up from. And if it's going to be water raining from Shemayim, yesh lanu davar. We have something else called a davar. It's called its name is ikav, and that will stop the water from coming from the heavens. Other people say it's ikish. Anyway, they had all these eitzes about how they were going to stop the water through natural methods. It's going to come up from your feet. Like it said in the pasuk, to prepare to be trampled by the feet, meaning they're going to get overrun by what's coming from between their feet. Tanya, Memi HaMabel Koshem Keshich Vazera. The waters of the Mabel were viscous. They were not very liquid. They were thick, like Shech Vazera. Shenema Nochad L'moyadei Regel. Like that which comes from between the feet, which is Shech Vazera. Amr Chizda, Beroischin Kelkalu Ba'avera. They were over in Averis of Roischen, of heat, which is a reference to Gili Arayis, to the Zera, the Shechva Zera of Gili Arayis, which is hot. And they were also judged with hot waters. It says by the Mabel that the waters receded. The Chama, the anger of the king, this is by Achashverosh, subsided. And the Chamas is violence. So they were judged with violence. They were judged with the same heat, the same anger that which is a Chamas is heated anger. So it means that they were mizana, which is also heat. The pasuk says also about the Mabel, Vayhi l'shivas hayamim. It was 7 days. The waters of the Mabel were on the land. What is these 7 days that the Torah describes? Those 7 days when the Mabel is really supposed to start, but Mesushelach had just died. The Rashi in Chumash says that the Mabel had to wait for the death of Mesushelach. So it wasn't just for his death. We also had to wait 7 days till his hespedim, till his shiva was over, before the Mabel could start. Davar acher, the shivas Sheshin Alein HaKadosh Baruch Hu say the Bereshis. The Shivas Yamim is a reference to that. The Rebbeinu Shalom changed the order of the natural events. So the sun would go out in the west and would set in the east. The Rebbeinu Shalom turned over all the natural order of the world. And so that the Lashon Shivas is a Lashon of the Rebbeinu Shalom's order of the world, which is the world, like we saw before, is going to last for 7,000 years. So it's a reference to that. The Rebbeinu Shalom changed the way he normally orders the world. Davar Acher, Shekavalim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zman Gadol V'Acher Zman Katan. That after the 120 years, the Rebbeinu Shalom had told Noach to build the Teva 120 years earlier, and he had been yelling that the flood is coming. Then he gave them a last warning, a 7-day warning. This sounds almost gratuitous. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave them a taste of Olam Haba, so they should know like we saw, the people, the Dar HaMabel lost their access to Olam Haba. The Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to sharpen the pain by exposing them to give them 7 days of Olam Haba. So he gave them the 7 days of, I think this is often, maybe it's just because I'm a Chaim Belina, but I think we were taught that the 70 Mei Bereshis is a Me'ein Olam Haba. So he gave them that experience so they should realize what they were losing. So weiter with the Mabel. Nikola behema tahira tikach l'cha shiva shiva. Ish ve'ishtay. It says about the animals that they took into the Teva, they had to take 7 of each, of male and female. Correct the Gemara. There's no man and wife for behemoths. They don't have matrimony. So what does it say? Ish v'isha. It just means to say, we had said before that the animals had interbred with cross species. So the ones that went into the Teva, the ones that were not involved in this. How did Noach know which ones to take? Whichever one the Teva was willing to take, then you knew it was a good one. Those, the ones that were rejected, the Teva had an ability to reject those that were inappropriate. Bavo says it was an easier way to tell. The only ones that came were the ones that were not Nevda Ba'avera. The pasuk continues. We're on Kuvchasam and Beis in the middle. Asay lecha tevas atzei goifer. Should make the teva out of atzei goifer. My goifer, Amavada Amid Beir of Shila, Zu Mavliga, Amrla Gulmish. The species of wood. Tzayer Tasa La Teva, Amrav Yechon Amalakash Baruch Noach, Kava Ba Avonim Toivas and Magalius. The Rebbeinu Shalom said this tzayer that Noach was told to make in the teva. You should make that means you should put precious jewels that should light it up for you like the day. Pasuk says, it should come to a 1 amma on the top, because that's a good size for a roof that it should last. If you make it too wide, then the water will cause it to collapse. Tachtiyim shnayim ushlishim tasa. What does that mean? They should make underneath 2 and 3. Tana tachtiyim lezevel. The bottom level was for garbage, and tzayim lebehema. The middle was for behemoths. El yoinim l'adam, and the top was for the adam. Yishlach has and he sent out the raven. Amr Reish Lakish tshuva nitzechas yeshiva oirev l'noach. The oirev had a very good taina to Noach. Amaloi rab chasoinoi. Your Rebbe, meaning the Rebbeinu Shalom, hates me, that the Orev is not a kosher animal, so therefore there was only 2 of them. And Atasanesi, Sanasani, and you also seem to hate me. The Rebbeinu Shalom hates me that he only took out 2 from the ravens. And you're exacerbating the situation. Sheva v'shalech min shnayim. You're instead of sending from the ones that you have spares from the Tahara animals that you have 7, you send from the one that only has 2. And Pagaya be sarchama sartzina. If I'm going to come across heat, or it says literally the malach of heat or the malach of cold, and I'm going to die, isn't the world going to lose the whole berry of a raven? Because then there'll be no zug, there'll be no mate for the female. Or maybe the raven said, maybe you're because you're Muhammad, you're Mesava for my mate. Amalai. He said to him, Russia. But mutter you're a Russia that you think like that. But mutterly Nesali, but Nesali a Kolshikain. Next said back to him, I'm also in Tas Shamita anyway on the teva. So if I'm also to my wife, I'm certainly also to your mate. How do we know that they were also in Tas Shamita on the teva? The chsiv, ubas al teva ata ubanecha ve'ishtecha shnei banecha ita. It says you go into the teva, you and your son and your wife and your children's wives. So the Torah doesn't say them as couples. It says first you, then your children, then your wife. It doesn't put them next to each other. When it says when they came out of the teva, it says it put together Noach together with his wife and the children together with their wives, because at that point they were mutter and tas shamita. Tan Rabban, shloisha shimshu b'teva. There were 3 that violated this rule of not being mishamash in the mita. For kulam laku, and they were all punished. Kalev, Kelev, we should say, a dog, V'ayrev, and the raven, V'cham, and Cham, the son of Noach. Kalev, Nikshur, the Kalev was leashed. That became the fate of a dog, that he had to go around on a leash. Ayrev, rock, rake. Rashi says that the Ayrev was only mezavig with saliva instead of the normal way of being mezavig. The way a male and female is born, a female is with roy. Cham loka ba'ayre, and Cham was punished with his skin. L'chayre means that he became darker. Pasuk said, the Gemara says, "Vayishlach hasayayna," state in Pasuk, "Vayishlach hasayayna mi'itay." Afterwards, after the raven's mission was unsuccessful, Noach sent out the yaina, the dove, Leroy's hakalu amayim, to see if the waters had subsided. You see from here that the residence of kosher animals is together with tzaddikim, because it says from him, which had not used that lashon by the Erev. There was a piece of a leaf, a branch of a olive taraf b'fia in its mouth. Amr Avalaza, Amr Yoina lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbeinu Shalom. My sustenance should be marurim kazai, should be as bitter as an olive, or masurim biyadcha, and it should come from you. And it shouldn't be as sweet as honey and given by the biyad basav adam. I guess the idea was that the Yaina was happy to take this olive, which is obviously bitter, rather than what he was getting from Noach, because he would rather take from the Rabbana Shalom. And it's also a drasha from the word. My mashma, where do you see the pasuk that we're talking about his sustenance? The high taraf lishna de mezayni. Where do we see that taraf is a lashon of sustenance? D'chsev hatrifani lechem chuki. Provide for me, so be mefarnes me with my daily bread. The pasuk says, according to their families, they came out from the teva. And Rabbi Yochanan says that they came out. Every species was separate. They weren't all together. They weren't all fed from the same trough. Amar Chana bar Bizna Amalei Eliezer l'Shem Rabba. Eliezer said to the great Shem who had been there. Eliezer was the servant of Avram. He asked Shem, who had been on the teva, Ksiv l'mishpchasem yatzum min teva etan heichen havisun. He asked him, how did that work? How were you able to feed so many animals separately? Amalei, tsar gadol hayulanu beteva. It was very difficult. It was a big tsar. It was a big pain. Those that need to be fed a day, we fed by day. Those were at night, were at night. Hi, Zakisa, there was a certain bird that my father Noach didn't know what to feed it. He was one time he was peeling a pomegranate, and a worm fell out of it. And this zakisa, this little animal, ate it. So what my father would do was he would mix up some wheat with water and let it get rotten, and when it would get wormy, achla, then he would feed it to this animal. Arya ishta zinsa, the lion, it was sustained by its fever. Damrav zvid loy batza mishisav loy tracer zina ishta. A person who has a fever is not hungry, and he's sustained without food. So it's perceived, or it's true. I guess his metabolism gets lowered, and he doesn't need nutrition. Menachem, you don't have to comment on whether this is recommended treatment for a fever, but in any case, the Gemara is saying that the lion. It seems like this is not like the story that we all know, which is in the Gemara also. Chazal. We're saying that the lion was so dangerous to feed that the Rebbeinu Shalom made it that it didn't need to be fed the whole time it was in the teva, even though we know that Noach got bitten by the lion because he was late. Oh, Avarshina is a different animal. Ashkechine Abba, it's also called the Choil. Ashkechine Abba the Gani Besafna de Tevusa. My father found, Shem said, that it was hiding in its place, in its cage in the teva. So Noach asked, you don't need to be fed. I saw you so busy feeding all the other animals. I said, I'm not going to be a bother. I'll leave you alone. So Noach said to him, your bracha should be that you should not die. You should have a very long life. A person says this. Who was this? Samach. There's Eov. Eov says, "What I want is that I should die in my nest, meaning like in my own in my bed. And I want to live long like a choil. The choil is another name for this avarshina. So you see, Eov said, "I want to live long like the choil." So that was his bracha that Noach gave. They should have a long life. Amar Rav Chana bar Levoy, Amar Shem Rabba Eliezer. This Shem ben Noach said to Eliezer, Ki yaso olaycha malchei mizrach u'mayrev. Aton heicha aveditu. How did you fight when you were together with Avram, fighting against the Arba Malachim? Amalei Aisi HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avram Usvei Mimine. The Rebbeinu Shalom came with Avram, and he stood on his right side. Vavashadin and Afra, they would throw dirt. Vahavacharvi, it turned into swords. Gili, they threw straw. Vahavi Giri, and it turned into arrows. Shenema, Mizma LeDavid, No Hashem. This is a Mizma from David. La Doini, Shavli, Yemini. The Rebbeinu Shalom is on my side. Ad Ashis Oivecha, until my foes are vanquished. Hadoim LeRaglecha, they become a resting place for my feet. Uksiv, mi heyem in Mizrach, who shines from the east. Tzedek, Yikra'el Raglav, called Tzedek. Yidin lefon of Goyim lachem yad. Goyim and nations and kings will be underneath you. Yitin ka'af v'charba, he'll make their swords like dust. Kekash nidav kashta, and like straw blowing the wind, their bows. So you see that a cherev can be compared to dust, and arrows, or a bow and arrow, can be compared to straw. Nachamish Gamzu. It's a shame none of the kids are listening tonight. Nachash and Gamzu have a ruggle, the cholda have a salkale, I'm a Gamzula Taiva Nachash, and Gamzu always said Gamzula Taiva. You Machad Bo Yisrael Shturi during the Kesa. One time they had to send a gift to the Kesa. Amri Man, Amri Bahadi Man Nishta. Who should we send? Nishta Bahadi Nachamish Gamzu. Let's send with Nachamish Gamzu the Malumad Ben Nisim. He always has Nisim. The guy who always says no Gamzula Taiva. The Hashem always takes care of him. Kimata Hu Diura when he was in Ind Baal Mavis. He wanted to stay there. Amrile, my ikabadach. They asked him, "What are you carrying in your chest?" Amul kamuvlina karga lekesa. Said, "I'm bringing a gift for the kesa." Seems like he was, in addition to being very trusting of the Rebbe Shalom, he was very trusting of people as well. Kabu beglile. They got up in the middle of the Layla. They got up in the middle of the night. Sharinu siftei. They opened up his chest. V'shaklu called the havagabe. They took out the whole gift that they were sending to the kesa. They filled it up with dust. When they arrived there, when Nachamish Gamzu arrived by the Caesar, the Caesar found dust in the chest. Amar Chuchi Kamachaychebi Yehudai. Al Yidden making fun of me. Afkul lemakatle. They took out Nachamish Gamzu to kill him. Amar Gamzu l'toiva. And he said, okay, this is also good. Also Eliyahu arrived. V'idmulu kechad minai. We appeared like one of the court people. Amar Hu. Maybe this is the same dust that Avram Avinu had, the Havishadi Afra and Havicharbi, Gili Havigiri. Maybe this is the dust that he threw at the kings that turned into swords, and the straw became arrows. They tested it out, and that's what happened. There was one province that this Caesar was unable to vanquish. Shadamehu Afra, they threw this dust on them, and they were able to win. They brought up Nachamish Gamzu to the treasure house. Take whatever you want. Sifta the Hava. He filled up his chest with gold. Seems like they had originally sent jewels, and he took back gold. So I guess the relative values have changed since then. Kiada Asa. When he returned, Amalei Hanach the Yure, the innkeeper asked him, "My amtes lechei Malka, what did you bring to the king?" Amalu my deshakla meacha. He said the same chest that I had with me. So they decided, oh, we'll be smart. He came back with a whole chest of gold. We'll do the same thing. They came there, Shakli Inu, Shakli Inu, so they did the same thing. They brought dust. Amtul Hasam, they brought it there. And they got killed because they tried throwing it and it was just dust. The Dara Flaga has no chelik in Olam Haba. My Ovid. What was it that the Dara Flaga did? Ami de Be'er of Shila. Nivna Migdal. Benala Lirakia. They said that we're going to build a tower and we're going to go up to Shemaim, but not Kardumis. We'll chop it with axes, Kadesh Yuzuvu Memav, in order that the water should come in a steady flow. Instead of getting rain every now and then, we'll make a hole so that the water should come all the time. They made fun of this in Eretz Yisrael. Imkain, Livnai Echad Betura. They should have built it. Why did they build this in Bavel? Why did they build this tower in Bavel, which is a depression? They should have gone onto Everest and built it on the highest mountain. Amrav Yemei Ba'alaza Nechel Kula Gimel Kitas. He says a different shot. There were three different groups. Achas Aimeres Nalav and Eshiv Shom. One said, we're going to build this. The way Rashi learns it is we're going to go up and sit on top of this tower, and we'll live there. Achas Aimeres Nalav and Naved Avedis Kechavim. We'll go up there. We Aved Avedis Kechavim. Achas Aimeres Nalav and Nasim Mechama. The other one said, no, we'll use it as our base and we'll use it to conquer the world. Zusha Emeres Nalav and Eshiv Shom. The ones who said we're going to stay there and be protected. Vitzim Hashem. The Bershom scattered them. Vizusha Emeres Nalav and Nasa Melchama Nasu Kufim. They became monkeys, Veruchais and spirits, Veshadim and demons, Velilin, another kind of shade without wings. Vizusha Emeres Nalav and Navid Avedis Kechavim. The one who said we're going to go up and be Avedis Kechavim. Kisham Bala Hashem Svas Kalaretz. The Rebbeinu Shalom changed all their languages so that they weren't able to share a language, and they couldn't have a single avodah zarah. They became a whole bilbul. They all have different avodah zarahs. Many different pshatim in what these different groups were, and whether they were groups that were supposed to be Keneged Hashem, or they were just that they were groups that they were opposing that which Rebbeinu Shalom said everyone should scatter. They were trying to consolidate. Many different pshatim.
So basically, according to this teretz, right? You answer the question because they weren't trying to reach the sky. So therefore,
it's a new pshat. There's nothing to do with the last pshat that they were trying to reach the sky. I said they were building a tower for different reasons. None of them had to do with reaching Shemayim.
So therefore, it made sense to build it in a valley.
It doesn't make a difference. It's irrelevant where it was built. But the question then becomes, why were they punished for it? Like, what's so terrible about building a place to make a milchama against other people? So I think the answer is that it was connected to what the Rebbeinu Shalom had said, that people should disperse over the earth, and they decided not to follow that.
Interesting. I mean, it's kind of reflects a little bit on the evolution of that. The species of monkeys are related to humans.
But that he made them into monkeys, it was reverse evolution.
Right, but it's still. I mean, there are similarities more so than with other species.
Listen, they're definitely primates. Listen, my personal understanding of evolution is the same way the Rebbeinu Shalom made the world with rings in trees. That shows, the trees weren't all seeds. He created full trees. Created the world with, the possibility of evolution built in. But whatever, that's my personal. Everyone can consult your local mashgiach, your local Orthodox mashgiach for a better pshat. Tanya, Nasanaimer. Kulam l'shem avodas kechavim niskavnu. He says a different pshat. No, there was all l'shem avodas kechavim. Ksiv hacha nas alanu shem. It says over here we're going to make for ourselves a shem. Ksiv hasam v'shem elokim acherim lo yisaskiru. It says in Shemais, it says you shouldn't bring other avodah zaros. You shouldn't mention the names of other alehim acherim, of other gods. So the word shame is a reference to avodah zarah. Malon avodas kechavim, mafkan avodas kechavim. Amar Rav Yochanan. Migdal shlis nisraf, this migdal that they built, a third of it was burnt, shlish nivla, a third of it was swallowed up by the ground, shlish kaim, and a third of it is still sticking out of the ground. Amar Rav says, avir migdal mishkach. If one is exposed to the air of that tower, it causes him to forget. Amar Rav Yosef, Bavel ubursif, Siman Rala Torah, two of these. There's two cities. Bavel is not a reference to the country, but rather to the city, and Bursaf is another city that were right near the spot where this Migdal was built. So if someone learns there, they're going to forget their learning. It's bad mazel for the Torah. My Bursaf, what is the word Bursaf? Amravasi bar shefi, an empty bar, meaning someone who learns Torah there, he'll become an empty bar. He'll forget what he learned. Anshe Steim. Up to Anshe Steim, they don't have a chelik oilam haba. Now we're just going to have a one blot roast of Steim, of all the terrible things they did. Tan Rabban, Anshe Steim, ein lem chelik oilam haba. Shnever Anshe Steim, roim b'chatoyim l'Hashem oid, roim ba'olam hazeh, b'chatoyim la'olam haba. The roim is for this world, and chatoyim is oilam haba, they lose the oilam haba. Amar Rav Yehuda, roim b'gufin, b'chatoyim b'mamayna. Rav Yehuda says different pshat. The royim doesn't mean that they didn't lose the olam haba, but he says a different pshat from this pasuk. Royim begufan, that they did a averus with their guf, v'chatayim b'mamayim, and they also, as we're going to see on Omid Beis, they were very miserly and did a lot of averus with money. Royim begufan d'chsev eich esa hara g'dayla hazois v'chatasi lalikim. The royim means begufan. Because Yosef said, how could I do this thing of being, when the Eishes Potiphar presented herself to him, said, how could I do such a raw hagdaila? So you see, raw is a vera begufay. The chatayim b'mamayim, and chatas, chatayim, that the anshe istayim or chatayim, means b'mamayim, just a v'haya b'chachet l'Hashem. The Gabi Shemitah, one who refuses to lend before Shemitah because he's afraid that Shemitah is giving him a shamet, That's called a chayta. And I'm sorry, and Lashem zu birchas Hashem. That means that they were mechar if they blaspheme. Ma'oid, it says mechar chotel Hashem ma'oid, shemiskalim v'choitim, that they were being chayta on purpose. It wasn't unintentionally. They were doing it kneged Hashem. They knew that the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't like it, and they did it anyway. Masnisa Tana, we have a different version. Roy ben Mamayim chatoim begufan. He has it exactly the opposite. Roy ben Mamayim to say that's Lagabi. It's from the same parshias. That's also from the parsha of Shemitah. So the Gemara somehow picked the two psukim by the parsha of Shemitah and the parsha of Yosef that has both the word ra and chet. So you could pick which one you're saying is applying to which. He says the second shot says. And you don't give him a loan. So there's, you see, it's been Mamayim. Because it said, Yosef said, so you see, it's also called a chait to be over Nagili Arais. Lashem, zu birchas Hashem. That stays the same, it's birchas Hashem. Ma'oid, but Ma'oid he changes, zu shvichas damim. That's killing people. Shenemar, gam dam noki shafach menashe harbe ma'oid. Because we had this recently that he killed many people. Menashe killed many people in Yerushalayim. Tan Rabban, anshe stoim loinis go el b'shvel toiva shespiyah l'hamashkar hakadosh baruch hu. Just like we saw before, that I don't remember one of the malachim. Who was it? People did bad because of they had things too good, and that caused them to be nechshel. Where do you see that Anshe Stoim had a lot? Eretz mimeni yoytze lechem. It was a land that bread came out of it. V'tachtea nepach k'moyesh, and it got overturned into fire. Makom sapir avnei, the place that the stones were sapphire. V'afroi zov, and the dust was gold. Loy nesiv lo yadu ayat. V'loy shezafu ayin ayah. It was not afflicted by, there was no, it had the paths that no ayat knew it, and it was not seen by the ayah. There's a machlokes in the art scroll, because I looked up in the green art scroll on Tanakh, and it said these are the vulture and the buzzard. But the art scroll in the Gemara says it's a reference to robbers and the marauders. The children of lions don't go there, and they're not assaulted by a lion. So these are all the good things that Stoim had. They said, since we're such a good land, and this is very applicable. I don't know, for some reason it seems like this is exactly what's going on in the news the last week. We said we're a land that we have bread coming out of the ground, and the offer, the dust is gold. Why do we need to have people coming? What do we need? What do we need international trade? What do we need people to coming? They just want to make us a trade deficit from our money. Let's ban anyone from coming into our land. We're going to put tariffs up and make it that nobody can come in and sell stuff. Stop, the river overflows from a nation that forgets the idea of a regal of people coming by foot. They stop anyone from wandering in. So basically, they kept any outsiders from coming in. What does it say? Until how long are you going to oppose a man? You're going to or you're going to kill a man. You're all like a leaning wall and like a fence that's being pushed. This is the strategy that they would use. They'd see someone who had a lot of money. They put him next to a falling wall, and they topple the wall on top of him. They would take his money. This one's geschmack one. They dig and at night under the houses. They are sealed up in their houses by day. They don't see the light. They would see people who were wealthy, and they would give them this very strong smelling spices that were very expensive. These wealthy outsiders, they would take their these expensive spices and put them in their safe together with the rest of their valuables, which the people in Stein had no way of knowing where it was. And at night they'd come and sniff out where the aparsman was, like dogs, and that would lead them to where the guy had hidden his money. They return at night. They bark like dogs. And they circle the city. And they would dig over there wherever they smelt the balsam, the parsimon. And they would take the money that was together with it. The pasuk continues. Aram halchu mebli lavush. They went without clothing. Sus. Bekara, there was no clothing in the cold. Chamar, Yisaimim, Yinagu, Yichavlu Shar Almana. The Chamar of Yisaimim they would take, and they would take as a mashkin the ox of an almana. Gavulois Yasigu Eder, they would fool around with the boundary lines to take someone else's place. Gazlu v'yiru. Eder gazlu v'yiru, they would steal someone else's flock and use it. V'hula kvaras yuval. And they're going to end up in a kevev al gadash yishkai. And they're going to he's going to go to the Beis HaKfaras al gadash yishkai, and he's going to go quickly into his grave. Darish Rabbi Yosef b'tzipari, achasr nahi leila tlas meya michtera b'tzipari. Rabbi Yosef said over this Gemara, this eitzah that the thieves did to find where the hidden treasure was in people's houses, to lend them some afarsimon. And he said that night, there were 300 robberies in his town. People took the what he was teaching about Stoim, and they applied it in real life. Also, become tzarile. Everyone was angry at Rabbi Yossi. Why did you say this? Amulei Yahavis Urcha Laganvi. He says, I didn't realize that I'm giving shiurim to Ganavim. Amulu mi havi yadana da asa ganvi. He said, I'm sorry. They said to him, you're providing advice to Ganavim. Amulu mi havi yadana da asa ganvi. I didn't know that Ganavim showed up. And then there's this totally separate thing. The gutters in Sipari were flowing blood. People were so upset with the loss of this that it's a way of saying that they were all very unhappy that he died. They respected him in the end. So now we're going to go into all the wild things all the strange rules that they had in Stein. Army the Isle Chad Tura Mari Chad Yuma, the Lesle Liri Treyuma. They said someone who comes to the town that has one ox, he has to watch everyone else's oxen for 1 day. If he comes without any oxen, he has to do it for 2 days. Hau Yasma bar Amalasa. There was a Yasim who was the son of a widow. Havule, which seems redundant. Havule Ture Lemare. They brought him to watch. They brought him a shar to watch. Azul shaklinu v'katlinu. So he took it and he killed the shar. They told him, oh, you got to watch the shar. He was, because we have this rule that if you have no oxen, you got to watch for 2 days. Amalahu the islay tura nishkol chad mashcha. The lislay tura nishkol trey mashcha. He said, whoever owns an ox should take one of the skins of the dead oxen. The one who has none should take 2. Amulei mai. They said to him, what kind of business is this? Why are you giving away to the people who didn't give their oxen to you to watch? Amulu soif dina ketchila dina. So the same way you made me watch it, even though I don't have an ox, I'm going to give away the skins also with an arbitrary cheshbon. Matchil is dina the islay tura mari chadyum. The islay tura mari treyumi af soif dina the islay chad tura lishkol chad the islay tura lishkol trey. Okay, I think we'll stop over here because I'm losing my voice. Yeah.
What time? 7:40 tomorrow?
Why earlier? We usually do 7:50. Is there
7:50, I meant 7:50.
Yeah.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
everybody. Good luck. Good luck.
Good to